Welcome to Lakeport City Council meeting. Could we now start the meeting and call for roll call, please?
Councilmember Barnes?
Here.
Councilmember Marina?
Here.
Councilmember Parnett?
Here.
Councilmember Turner?
Here.
And Mayor Spur.
Present. Doug, can you lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
Sure. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, is there any urgency items for the agenda?
No.
Okay. Looking for a motion to accept the agenda as posted.
Mayor, I so move.
Second.
Okay, we got a first and second on the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next thing on the agenda is our consent agenda. Okay. And I will have to use my glasses for this. Okay, the following consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the council at one time without any discussion. Any council member may request that any item be removed from the consent agenda for discussion under the regular agenda. Removed items will be considered following the consent agenda portion of this agenda. Ordinances. Waive the reading except by title of any ordinance under consideration at the meeting for either introduction or passage per Government Code Section 3693-4. Minutes. Approve the minutes of the City Council Special Joint Meeting of December 9th, 2019, and the regular meeting of January 7th, 2020. C. Renewal emergency resolution. Confirm the continuing existence of local emergency for the Mendocino Complex fire. D. Renew energy resolution. Confirm the continuation existence of the local emergency for February 2019 storms. E. Confirm the continuing existence of local emergency for October 2019 PSPS. And F. Utility billing policy. Adopt resolution 2741 2020 approval and revised administrative policy utility billing effective February 1st 2020. And 2. Adopt resolution 2742 of 2020 approving the revised service deposit for new water accounts effective February 1st, 2020. Does anybody on the council wish to discuss these? Hearing none, does anybody in the public wish to discuss these? Okay, with hearing none, I'll bring this back to council.
Mr. Mayor, move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, the next thing we have is public presentations. I'm assuming we have public presentations. With these, you get 3 minutes to speak upon your topic, but it can't be on the agenda, and we cannot actually make a judgment on this until it gets put on the agenda. Okay. I think we'll take Nancy Rosica first for their streets on Parallel Drive in Del Lago.
Nancy Rosica. I was asked to be here tonight by a resident of Del Lago who said she was going to be here. She went to put her garbage out one night, stepped in a hole, fell on her face, and ended up in Sutter with a bloody face and a concussion from the streets in Del Lago. The Del Lago Homeowners Association group came before you, last year sometime, and I think they deserve an explanation of when their streets will be repaired. 44 years ago, Del Lago was built, and the streets to very high standard. Nothing's been done to them, and it's the highest concentration of tax base you have in the city. We certainly pay attention to the new low-income housing up on Martin Street. Those streets look pretty good. We find money to do those things. Let's take care of our neighborhoods before there's so many things we're spending money on, and you say you don't have any money to spend streets, and here I see all these Christmas lights on Main Street that were changed, and I see 3 city trucks out there and 6 guys. I'm getting very bad feedback from people on Parallel Drive where I have a office space and other owners, and I guess I'll take a survey and see how many jobs we have out there. Do you want to lose those? Drive down there, it's horrible. Our entrance to West Side Park, which we've all put a lot of money and time into with grilling on the green and things, looks terrible. It gives a terrible impression to people who are considering here to do business and create jobs. I think the Del Lago residents need your time schedule for repaving their streets and Parallel Drive. People who employ people over there deserve that. We got UPS there. Do you want UPS to leave town and go out to the airport or someplace else? There's a lot of jobs along there. Let's keep those jobs that patronize Hamburger Hill and the downtown restaurants, the grocery stores. I know I've harped on this before, and I'm disappointed that Megan isn't here tonight. I hope she doesn't sue the city. Is that when we get around to doing something about potholes? You can't put out your garbage without falling on your face because you stepped in a hole. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. The one thing about the Christmas lights, I think those were paid for by Main Street Association, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think the city had anything to do with the new lights. That's just a guess of mine. Alrighty, the next we have,
1 second, George.
yes,
Doug, is there some kind of mathematical way in which we decide which streets get paved next? Is it amount of people who use the road, or is it, what is the criteria in which we
prioritize.
thank you, prioritize? I had it in two directions and I still couldn't get it out. How we prioritize which streets get paved.
Yes, there is. That thing ain't working, so.
I got it.
We have a pavement management program, and we have a consultant come in every 5 years, and they assess all of our city streets. And unfortunately, the way that it works is a lot of it's based on what they call ADTs, which is your average daily traffic. An example would be Lakeport Boulevard gets around 13 to 18,000 ADTs. Where Del Lago might get 25 to 50. So you have, the way that it's set up is unfortunately you can't start at your worst street first and go to your best street last. It actually works backwards. You have to keep your best streets as best as you can. And then if there is anything left, then you work on into your residential or your lower volume streets. The reason that is because the cost to reconstruct is substantially greater than the cost to maintain or resurface. So this year we did 11th Street. We rebuilt the section out on South Main from Peckham Court to the city limits. And so we're trying to keep up with our main collectors and arterials and keep them in a condition where we don't have to pay for reconstruct. The portion from Peckham Court to the city limits was beyond doing a seal or a little overlay. That actually had to be reconstructed. That small portion of road, of course, we put it out to bid and solicit the lowest contractor, was $350,000 just to do that small stretch of road. So that's why that you always try to not let your streets get to that kind of condition, because you just can't afford the reconstruct costs. We did have a little bit of extra money left over. Well, I wouldn't say we had it left over. I took a small portion of what I had in my road maintenance budget, and we had a company in here that was doing a new type of slurry seal. So I got together with them, and we did do a portion of Del Lago. Out of all the streets in town that needed it, we took it and actually did one of the lowest volume streets in town, which is Del Lago, to try to see if that might be some kind of a remedy that we can use on these really low volume roads that aren't ever gonna make it to the top of our pavement management program, our pavement management list. And so we're gonna watch that through the summer and see how it goes. It is a new type that has a fiberglass binder in it, because typically with those kind of streets, when you have turning movements, it pulls it apart. That's why chip seals don't work really well in residential areas. So we're hoping that this is gonna work out and we get some good results. And then if we do, we'll start doing some more streets, because it's much more cost effective than trying to do overlays. And so we're moving ahead with that. We haven't forgot about Del Lago. We haven't forgot about Parallel. We haven't forgot about any of the streets in this town. It's just a simple fact that we do not have enough money to go around and do them. It's that simple. Right now, we're looking at over, and anybody that wants to come talk to me at the courtyard, I'll pull out our pavement management program and I'll be more than glad to go over it with them. It's over $40 million just to bring our streets up to a C. Not a B or an A, that's just up to a C. So, I hope people understand that's the kind of magnitude that we're looking at, because of the condition that our roads are in. The cost to try to get them back is really expensive. I think for a little bitty town, Lakeport does pretty darn good on trying to keep their streets up. And I think my staff works really hard at trying to keep things up as much as we can, within the dollars that we have.
Yeah, that's hard, working within that budget, working within that parameter, with all the having to go out to bid and us not just being able to do it in-house. It drives the cost of everything we try to do way up. So I applaud you for finding that slurry mix, and hopefully that'll be a good solution for a lot of those.
We're very hopeful about that, and I hope it works out.
So Doug, I got a couple questions. Last I looked, and maybe Nick could even chime in on this, last I looked at Measure I, we collected 7 million and we spent 11 million on city streets, because that was the big demand for the city. That's correct, right? That was at last time, and I think since then we've spent a lot more. But didn't we do, I think at the National Night Out, we had a nice little poster up there with something like 26 different streets that were done?
Correct.
Okay, and lastly, isn't Del Lago, I think maybe Kevin or someone talked to me about the horrific design because of the way the turning radius is. People back out of their drive and then they turn their wheels and it just destroys the pavement. And also that was built by an independent contractor and not city, and that was dumped on the city as a responsibility that we had to take over.
When you have residential areas, turning movements, I'm going to go back to what I stated a little bit earlier, are very problematic for most road treatments because of the temperatures that we have here. A chip seal or that type of a product is basically oil with gravel in it, and the temperature's raised up so that then that oil actually starts to be able to move. And so when somebody backs out of their driveway and they just sit there and they crank their wheel to turn to go, what it does is it actually starts peeling it up. And so that's why the lower cost road treatments are very problematic in residential areas.
Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
Any more comments?
What a slap to a local business, Mr. Parlett.
I'm
I'm not coming in here to talk to you anymore. I guess I'll have to run at 80 years old for city council to change things here. Thank you.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I told you they were designed to the highest standards. You haven't done anything about them in 44 years.
Because they get 25 cars a day.
Well, he just said
Here's
cars pulling
15
out
to
of their
18,000.
driveways, wrecks a substandard street.
Okay,
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
okay, any more public comment? We have one here for Donald Salisbury. Is that correct?
Right here.
Okay,
I have one request first. I know we only get 3 minutes. We're all from the same park, and we are trying to get what's called the Rent Stabilization Act. Mr. Porter, he knows far more about it than I do. He wants to speak too.
Okay.
They asked because I had to kind of take the park over for a while. And could I have 2 people's minutes to have about 9 minutes to speak? Is that permitted?
actually.
I don't need even 9 minutes. It's just a.
How about 6? Okay. That'll be 2 threes.
Am I on the clock yet? My name is Don Salisbury. I'm not an educated person. I was a painting contractor. We live in the Clear Lake Marina Mobile Home Park. I'm sure most of you know where it's at. It's directly across the street from the dollar store, our new dollar store. Okay, there's in City of Clive right now, they enacted, they've had it for a while, it's called the Rent Stabilization Act. They put it in because it does 2 things. It protects the owner of that property, it makes sure he gets a fair return on his money, and it also protects the people in the mobile home park from soaring rent prices. We just had our park got sold to some gentleman in Texas. Okay, he does never own a mobile home park in California whatsoever. He come in and put it from 35% to all the way, and some people 80% rent increase on all of us. Every person in that mobile home park is a senior citizen. Every single one of us. Every single one of us pays our rent on time. We always have. We don't know what to do. You might say to yourself, well, just sell, just move. Well, we can't because everyone in the park, we own our mobile homes. And some of our mobile homes, I can show you pictures, are very nice mobile homes. Very nice. And the other ones are the best they can do. The past owners done us horrible. This is why what I'm about to show you, this comes right back to what the rent stabilization, I'll be right back to why it's so important for this city. And all the surrounding cities all around us have already enacted. You could use your class as a blueprint. We're not asking anything, we're just only asking you to look at the information. And Mr. Porter, he's educated, he can show you. But this new guy, a while back, the old owners, they were terrible, they didn't care about us, refused to do any maintenance. So finally, we kind of put them on the spot. I said, all right, if you guys, because our water and sewer used to be included in our rent. So they said, we just can't afford to do any maintenance. So we got back with them, and we said, all right, we will start doing what's called a pass-through. They pass the water and sewer onto the residents, okay? So we took a $110 raise in our rent, which for us is like, it's 25% backed onto our rent. It really is, which is may not be a lot to you guys, but for us, it was a lot, and that was fine. We did it. And we're going to put water meters in. They said they'll put in the meters, and then we will pay our own rent. Okay, that happened 3 years ago. Okay, 3 years ago. Right there in that other building, the water company will show you exactly what we ran into. There's 40 of us that pay the $110 a month. Okay, that comes, for the last 30 months we've been paying that. No maintenance whatsoever has been done on the park. We have to get our own trees. We have to do all of our own maintenance. Not one thing is they ever took care of. And so now it's exactly, checked in the office, they know me, it's $65,000 later we paid. And they never did one thing. Now the new owner, he's coming in, on top of all the other rents, he's saying now he wants another $104 a month to put meters in. Well, we already paid for it, and here's half of them laying in boxes. It takes 20 minutes to put these other 13 meters in. And he said, no, I don't recognize him. He just, we can't believe this guy. I've never seen anything like this in my life. And if you want to know something about our park, here's our nice new Dollar General. He's owned our store for 2 months now. If you want to see something, maybe you guys don't realize this. Here's a look at our new dollar store, and look at what, this is raw sewage. Goes right back to the water bills that's pumping up right now out of our sewers. And for 2 months, he won't do anything. He's from Texas. Here's right in the middle of the park, here's raw sewage. And none of us can afford this. Every single one of us is going to lose our homes, and we can't even sell them. We've got time to sell them. Here's the fences they were supposed to fix. It's horrible. And you look at our park across the street, you think, well, that place kind of run down. Not because of us, because they won't do anything. And this new guy, they put poor little manager, local girl, and she's about ready to quit because she can't do anything. He's not going to fix anything. And this is what's bizarre. This is, the fire department told me, Don, get a licensed contractor in there. Because there's live wires right underneath here. Then nobody will listen to us.
Okay, Don.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We noticed that you do have a lot of issues with the upkeep
Well,
of
this
the-
all goes back to this Rich Stabilization Act because it makes these, the owner of a mobile home park, okay, if he wants to raise our rent by another $100, first he has to meet with us. But if you look in the Rent Stabilization Act, and we only ask you guys to read at some point after this meeting's all over, we have everything for you. It forces the owner of a mobile home park to meet with us and justify it. And if you can't justify it, then there's an arbitrator, is that what's called, Craig? That comes in and looks at both sides and says, okay, you can do it or you can't. And his judgment is final.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take it up to your time.
and-
But there's literally gonna be, we know for a fact, in just a little over 3 months from now, there's gonna be 64 people homeless, without a doubt. Check it out. And then there's gonna be more on the next go round. And there's no law right now. We only ask for 5%, like all the other cities get increase.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, and does Mr. Porter want to talk?
Yes.
Come on up.
So mine is a little handout that says 38% on the top. This one here. I'm going to cover a lot of the stuff that Don has already covered. Maybe fill in a couple little holes. My name is Craig Porter. I live in the Clear Lake Community Mobile Home Park. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you guys. Appreciate it. I'm here primarily to talk about just the rent increases, not the park condition, and the new owners are planning impact, and some of the impacts that I believe they're going to have on the residents. I'd like to take just a minute to point out some really, a couple of these were surprising to me, but unique circumstances that, or circumstances that are unique to mobile homeowners. One I think is pretty obvious that mobile home owners own the house, but they don't own the land. And so that creates kind of a unique situation with regard to the homeowner and the park owner. And the state has recognized that this circumstances and has created a lot of laws to regulate this, which are all codified in the mobile home residency law that I know you guys have seen. The one thing that the state obviously has not intervened in or creating legislative ordinances or laws has to do with park rents. That's kind of left alone. The only thing the state requires is that the mobile home park owner give us notice that they're going to do this 90 days. But after 90 days and they implement the rent increase, there's nothing that stops them from issuing another 90-day notice to us. And on and on and on it goes. The other thing that's really a unique aspect, and I think Don sort of touched on a little bit, there's a general industry rule that if for every $10 that the space rent is increased on a mobile home, the owner loses $1,000 in the value of that mobile home. So in our case, on a double wide, which they're increasing the rent by $175, those homeowners are going to lose $17,500 in terms of resale value. And that's part of what Don was implying by that we won't be able to resell them. In a lot of cases, particularly some of the poor people who live in the park, that's pretty close to the entire value that they have in there. The third issue that I'd just like to touch on is although they're called mobile homes, they really aren't. Once they're put in place and tied down, they're extremely expensive to move, in a lot of cases more than the value of it. It's very difficult to find a new location, you're probably aware of that. There's not a lot of mobile home parks here in Lakeport, and certainly there's not a lot of openings. And then depending on the age of the mobile home, you may not actually be allowed to move it legally. So those are three things that I just sort of wanted to touch on. Then I just wanted to kind of briefly go through this little spreadsheet that I've given you. The 36.8% rent increase, that's on double wide, based on the cost that we're paying in the current park rules versus what the new owner is suggesting. We've also heard from people that work inside the Park Nation company that we should be looking for another 15% after that. In the case of these double wides, that would bring their increase this year by year end, if they didn't implement any more, to 57%. I sort of briefly broke down how many spaces and the number of residents that are living there. And there's a sort of table that sort of breaks down, includes the pass-through that Don was talking about. Probably the thing that I really wanted to focus on is the next item, which is what is going to happen. And again, Don has touched on that. Basically, talking to the other owner in the park, based on their income, we believe that 25 additional units will be vacated in addition to the 14 that are already vacated. That's going to affect at least 60 residents who, in some cases, have a place to go and in some cases don't have a place to go. And would in that case be, depending on public housing, the city, I'm not sure where they would go. That's sort of a mystery to me. If all those people left, then 78% of the spaces in the park would be empty. And you might ask, well, why would an owner do that? Well, the only reason that you would do that as an owner is if you want an empty park, if you plan on redeveloping it. And we're pretty sure that's exactly what he's planning to do. I mentioned the state of California does not provide any maximum on rent increase or maximum rent or rent increase that mobile homeowners can charge the residents. Don mentioned there's over 200 cities and counties in the state of California that have enacted mobile home rent stabilization to prevent this kind of predatory rent increases that forces the poorest member of our communities out of the homes that they own.
Okay, can we wrap that up?
Sure. So I think at the bottom, there's the two things that we're asking. One, that Don already mentioned, the rent stabilization. The second, if possible, because I know that you can't create an ordinance overnight, that you take a look at doing some sort of a temporary measure to freeze rents to prevent these people from being put on the street. I've additionally provided some articles to you, a list of the cities. Your staff has a lot of copies of different rent stabilizations around Northern California.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming that Margaret and Kevin will be looking into this, and they'll probably get back to you guys.
Thank you.
Not sure when.
And can I say just one other quick thing?
Real quick.
Okay, if me and my wife have to leave our home, okay, and we will, I know.
Come up to the microphone, please.
If me and my wife have to leave our home, which we will, maybe not this first go around, we'll survive until they hit us again. He will hit us again. We can't, even if we have to leave our beautiful home behind and everything we have, we can't even rent a house. Because when I know, I'm a painter, I do a real estate probably all the time. They're gonna wanna know where you just moved from, what your income is, and that's right, because they gotta protect the home that we're wanting to rent. And no way are they gonna rent to me. We can't even, me and my wife have good credit. We can't even rent a house because they're gonna say, just a minute now, you owe $700 a month at that park, and that man's not gonna let us out of it. He's gonna hold us to that until he takes our home. We can't even rent a house. I know for a fact. Talk to the rental agencies. They're gonna wanna know where we're from. As soon as they find out how to do that, we owe money over there. He can attack our wages. There's no one's gonna rent to me and my wife. We have good credit. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming out and telling us about your problems that you have, and we'll see about looking into it for you.
I really appreciate it.
Okay. Moving on.
Can I say something?
One more, come on up.
My name's Raymond Gilbert. I fought for this country. Help me fight for my house. That's all I'm asking. There's a lot of vets in that park. One of them just lost his leg. He ain't got nowhere to go.
And I'm a vet. We have a veteran who just lost his legs in the hospital.
Help
And
him
they
save our
hung-
homes.
They hung
That's
a eviction notice on his door because he didn't get his payment in time. And he's gonna come home to an eviction notice. He's the sweetest guy you ever seen in your life. I mean, just, I'm a veteran, Craig's a veteran, he's a
You
veteran.
come live
5
in
of the
the backyard.
veterans in there, and I talked to the veterans station, they're very upset.
We're all disabled.
Yeah. Every single one of us.
We're all on thick because we can't afford the rent increase.
Okay.
Build me a doghouse.
But please, if you drive by, don't take our park at first look, because 90% of that, they won't do anything about it. Matter of fact, they hung an old, didn't they, you guys? They hung an old, we had a big beautiful sign lit up that said, Clear Lake Marina Mobile Home Park, if anybody remembers it. They took it down, and some drunk they had working for them, the last owners, they hung a bed frame up there.
Agenda, can we talk about putting this on the agenda right now, or?
Yeah, you can direct staff to bring
I
this
mean, I
back
would
for an
say this
agenda
is
item.
something we should bring back as an agenda item, to look at the pros and cons of a stabilization act for the mobile home parks.
We want to look at something temporary as we make that decision.
Well, we can decide that in the agenda item, but
I just mean.
Yeah,
to
well,
have
unfortunately,
something
you
prepared.
can't make that decision now, but you could direct staff to bring it back to next.
would anyone else be interested in bringing this
support
back?
Oh, I would, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that's all of us, if we can bring that back. Thanks for bringing it to attention. We will bring it back, and you'll know that it's on the agenda, and then come back and talk to
Because we
us.
only have 30 days to sign this lease in March, and then by April, he
We'll
told
try
us
to get
if we
it
don't
on the
sign the lease.
agenda in 2 weeks.
They,
If
unfortunately,
we don't
by
sign
law,
the
they're
lease, he's gonna
unable to
fine us
take any action.
$100 lien on our mobile homes if we don't sign it in 30
I
days.
completely understand
Okay,
what
this
you're
is
going
cool.
through. You guys should reach out to the state to see if there's some assistance there, but we'll try to get it on the next
We
agenda.
would appreciate it so much.
You're welcome.
February 4th.
Thank you.
February 4th, thank you very much.
Thank you very
We
much.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Do any of us
Okay.
need to say anything else on the matter right now?
No.
No,
Okay,
Thank
We
you.
all praise you, and thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
This is our homes, and I've lived in Lake County all my life, I would have never thought something like this could happen. We poor people, but we're decent people.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
We thank
We
you all
very
for
much appreciate
listening.
it, you guys.
Thank you.
I know, and I didn't recognize you.
Okay, is there any public comment on anything other than what has already been spoken about? Okay. Seeing no more public comment, let's go to the Public Works grant. Doug? Well, that's kind of confusing. The CDBG thing wants to be held off to February 4th also, so we don't have any packet to talk about.
Mr. Mayor, it was noticed as a public hearing, so we still do need to technically open the public hearing if there's anybody who wants to come in. I can say a couple words on it real quick to kind of clear up why it got pulled from this evening.
All right, so we're going to open, Kevin, if you want to speak about the CDBG block grant, and then we'll open it for public hearing.
Sure, yeah, real quickly, this is kind of a no good deed goes unpunished sort of thing. We tried to get this public notice out with plenty of time to give us the most ample time available to put together an application. Unfortunately, CDBG has not released their notice of funding availability like they said they would. We're expecting to get that hopefully by the end of this week. But we did notice it as a public hearing. So what we're requesting is you open the public hearing and take any public comment that folks may have come in as a result of that notice, and then also request a motion to set this to a date, time, and certain to meet and discuss the proposal again at the February 4th, 2020 meeting.
Okay. Is there any public comment on the CDBG, or should we do
You
it?
need to actually open the public hearing after you.
Okay.
You get to use the gavel.
I get to use a gavel.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody on the council want to talk about CDBG grant, block grant? If not, we're going to open this up to public comment for the CDBG block grant. Is there anybody in the public? Evidently not. So I'm looking for a motion to move this to the February.
Close the public hearing first.
Oh, I'm sorry. we're gonna close the public hearing for
Mr.
the
Mayor,
CDBG.
I make a motion to continue this item to the February 4th agenda.
Second. I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? February 4th, two things.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. All right, now for the grant application from Doug.
Mr. Mayor, Council, before you have a request from the Public Works Department for authorization of a resolution for the submittal of a grant application to Division of Boating and Waterways. Ron, I have to give the credit where the credit's due. Ron Ladd actually found this grant. It's rather unique as it doesn't have a 50% match like most of Boating and Waterways. This is actually a 100% grant, which is almost unheard of.
Go Ron.
Yes, go Ron. So Ron brought it to my attention, and of course had my full approval in pursuing and getting the information. Ron put together all the information that's in the staff report. Ron has actually filled out the grant in the grant portal so that we're ready to submit if council approves and authorizes a resolution to proceed. We're ready to go, and this would be replace the restrooms at, we call them 3rd Street, but they're actually closer to 4th Street, and the 1st Street restroom. That would be the last two in Library Park that are in desperate need of being replaced. We have not been in Boating and Waterways cycle for a little while, so that's extra points for us because we haven't asked them for money in a little bit. And Ron put together a really good package. And so we're asking for council support and the authorization for the resolution so that we can submit this grant. If you have any questions on design or anything, Ron could answer those for you.
Okay, one question I had is if we do the grant, can we expect a response back from them? Is it 3 months?
They haven't given a timeline for response, but I would say it's a highly competitive grant.
Come on up and talk to the microphone.
So they haven't listed a timeline for response. They said that they would review all the grant applications. They weren't even sure how many they were going to get, so they wouldn't give us a date on how long it would take them to review because they weren't even sure how many applications were going to come in.
What kind of pool of money do they have?
So it was a little confusing because there are several different grant pools. There's motorized launching facilities and non-motorized launching facilities. There's facilities that are run by concessions and that they all get split up. It seemed to me there was about a $3 million pool that we were competing in.
So Ron, way to go above and beyond. It's just awesome. Work like that is what makes the city great. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, hopefully we can be successful.
Just that we're trying is awesome.
And if we get it, do you want your name above one of the doors or something?
Absolutely.
Lads Lou.
Thank you.
Okay, any more comments from council? Okay, any comments from the public? Hearing none, we'll come back to council.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed resolution authorizing the city manager to sign and submit a grant application to the Division of Boating and Waterways.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Yeah. Okay, next thing we have on the agenda is miscellaneous reports. Let's start with Kevin.
Nothing to report this evening.
Dave?
No report?
Doug?
Hopefully, we're still on track to begin construction on the seawall next Monday.
Did they say they got their materials?
Well, we haven't got confirmation, but they haven't called and said they haven't either, so I'm sure we would have heard from them if there was gonna be a further delay.
Okay.
So we're excited.
Okay, Nick.
Nothing to report.
Chief?
Yes, one item, tomorrow, the entire police department is going to be in a mandatory training on several updates. So the Clear Lake Police Department will have a patrol team here in the city covering our law enforcement services from around 11:30 a.m. to 6:30 or 7:30 that night, depending on what time we finish up with our mandatory training.
Is your mandatory training going to be at the police station or the?
It's actually going to be here in City Hall.
Okay.
Is that common?
It's common for us to meet as a whole department at least once a year.
Probably for efficiency reasons, get it all done and.
Yeah, there's various reasons as to why we need to get everybody together, but it usually doesn't happen more than once a year, and I think it's been 2 years since we've done it. But we have done it before. Clear Lake has covered our city just as well as we've gone down there and covered their city when they've had similar meetings.
Like mutual aid, huh?
Right.
Kelly?
No report.
Maria?
No report.
Stacy?
I just wanted to mention that the city's annexation application was on the LAFCO agenda, and the item went well. The city and the county agreed to hire someone else to look at the fiscal studies, and then the city and county agreed to go to a mediator and discuss it. And so it's moving forward. That looks good, and I wanted to say I love the lights on Main Street. The 49er lights are amazing, so have an idea who probably set those up. Good job.
You sure those are not for Kansas City? They're red, you know.
I think they're Niner lights. I'm going with that.
Anyway, Mr. Barnes.
Ron is a rock star, that is all.
Mr. Parlett.
I agree with that, Ron.
All right.
I'd just like to say that at long last, the $15,000, I think what it was, reinstatement fee that was required by the abandoned vehicle abatement has been fully paid. We actually got, when I say we, the abandoned vehicle abatement committee got like $19,000, mostly goes to the county and the city of Clear Lake, which sorely need it and way more than we do. But from here on out, the monies will be coming in at a much higher rate now that we asked to have that forgiven, but there's not much forgiveness at that level. And so now the abandoned vehicle abatement will be better countywide. I will say I had a meeting with, and this isn't strictly Lakeport, but I met with the new manager of code enforcement that's taken over from the previous person, and he's very energetic, very motivated. He's already doubled the staff. I think he has a fourth one coming on, plus himself. He's actually going to be working out there, which is good for us countywide, because we do a very good job here, thanks to our staff. But that's good news for all of us in Lake County, because we know that tomorrow, somewhere, there will be an RV dumped somewhere with toxic waste and garbage in it. We will have to mitigate that. And we'll say that we never get enough money to do that, and that's why the one thing that does concern the city of Lakeport is we're working on a county and city administrative citation to help compensate for the minuscule amount that the California Highway Patrol allows for only $100 for someone dumping off a $4,000 tow job. And so the city of Clear Lake actually has an administrative citation down there, and we're looking to get something similar to that so that we can do something to help mitigate those in the city and the county of Lake. So that's it.
Okay. Well, I did my first fire board meeting last Tuesday, and it was quite interesting. They're going to put together a matrix of their equipment because some of them they need to replace. And so that's going to happen within the next month or so, and they're going to prioritize which equipment they need to get fixed and how they're going to fix it. So it was a good meeting. Other than that, thank you, Stacy, for helping me keep on board here. And that's all I have to say. Anybody want to say anything? Nope? Okay. Looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Go ahead, I'm going to do that.
Sure, I so moved.
Vector Control does it, so that's why I'm doing it.
Okay. So moved.
Okay, meeting adjourned.